An icy, wintry landscape, a crew who start to turn on one another, and the alien at the center of it all? All of this can only mean one thing. We're comparing The Thing from Another World and The Thing on this episode of Retro versus Remake.
I'm Reggie Parker, or am I?
And I'm Dan Bulick. Welcome to another episode of Retro versus Remake. This is the series where we compare movies and their remakes. Join us as we answer the question, should this remake exist? Today's films are The Thing from Another World and The Thing. Getting right into it, The Thing from Another World, made in 1951, starring Margaret Sheridan, Kenneth Tobey, Robert Cornthwaite, Douglas Spencer, and James Arness as The Thing. Directed by Christian Nibby, screenplay by Charles Lederer, Howard Hawks, and Ben Hecht. Music by Dmitri Tiomkin. The Thing, 1982, starring Kurt Russell, Keith David, Wilford Brimley, Richard Mauser, Donald Moffat, T.K. Carter, and Thomas G. Waits. I believe, Reggie, this is the first movie where we have no women at all.
Wow.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's any.
No, I think you're right. There's women in Solaris. There's women in Charlie the Chocolate Factory. I mean, yeah.
This is totally dudes. All right, and we're directed by John Carpenter. Screenplay by Will Bay Lancaster, and music by Ennio Morricone. And both of these films are based on the 1938 John W. Campbell Jr. novella, Who Goes There? Okay. Reggie, what is your first experience with either film?
This may surprise you, but my first experience with both of these films for this podcast. Very familiar of the lore of The Thing. I had a good idea of what happens in the movie. I think it's that much in the zeitgeist at this point. The remake, of course. And I wasn't even really familiar with the original, material. I know they did that prequel at one point too. And yeah, I guess I'm gonna round out this sentence with I played The Thing for, I believe, Dreamcast, and that was pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, when I was looking it up, I was like, oh, they made a video game of this too, so that's interesting. My first experience with either of these films is also for this podcast. I had never seen, or I barely knew anything about. Okay, I got Ace kind of climbing on my lap now.
Can't trust
Ace,
the dogs either, man.
What are you doing? Yeah, can't trust you. You might be an alien. You might be an alien, buddy. So I'd never seen either film. I barely knew anything about them. I didn't know it was an alien at all. Spoilers. I thought it was just a creature. I knew Kurt Russell, Snow, and John Carpenter for the remake, and definitely knew nothing about the original film. So very fresh set of eyes coming to this. I had been told many times, you haven't seen The Thing, what's wrong with you? Well, doesn't happen. That sentence won't be said anymore because I've seen them both, and now I can come back at them. What? You haven't seen the original? Yeah, so suck on those.
My other friend, Dan, a different Dan, is like constantly like, we're sitting at the bar sometimes, and I feel like every other week he's like, oh yeah, it's like in The Thing. I'm like, I haven't seen it.
Exactly. Well, now we are one of the privileged Reggie. So let's jump into this comparison. Very different films. So my synopsis is going to be very, very brief. Here's my synopsis. Scientists are stationed in isolation in a wintry location doing research. While they are there, the discovery of a lifetime is made as a UFO is found. Near the UFO is a frozen alien, which is taken back to camp. The alien eventually gets out of his ice prison, and all hell breaks loose. The group is under attack constantly, and they even turn on each other at times. Fire seems to be effective against the creature. Ultimately, they are able to destroy it, and each movie has their own respective ending. Very brief. None of the characters are the same. The whole setup is completely different. So with our comparison, I think we should start there.
Absolutely. This is the Pets edition.
Oh yeah. His face is right there. Okay. So let's start with the setup. We'll start with the original film. Well, the setup's pretty straightforward. We start with a bunch of military officers in Anchorage, Alaska.
Anchorage from Polar Expedition 6. Anchorage from Polar Expedition 6.
Kind of just shooting the shit. Beat reporter comes in, starts talking to them too, and then immediately we're sent to the North Pole because scientists have discovered something and they need help. And who better than the military, I guess, in the 50s. Sure. So they go to this location. I don't know exactly where in the North Pole, but somewhere in the North Pole, pretty isolated. And it's kind of, should I just jump right there? That they kind of just discover a UFO?
Yeah. I mean, you might as well talk about the remake. Starts with spaceship, so you know.
Okay, well, so the original, they run into a spaceship. They try to get it out using thermites, and whoops, accidentally blow it up. So no spaceship, and instead they find this body of an alien frozen in the ice. They take that back. One genius puts a heated blanket on it, completely melts the ice, and then that's when things really sort of kick into gear. Our plot really drives forward at that point. So that's the initial setup. Bit different from the remake setup. Do you want to maybe do this one?
Yeah, the remake setup. There's kind of like the early alien reveal, but it's very like not consequential. It's just kind of like, hey, here's the title, right? But to me, the movie really starts with this crazy Norwegian in this helicopter taking shots with a sniper rifle at a dog. From his helicopter. We have no idea why he's shooting at the dog. We have no idea because of the sort of the language gap. What the hell's going on? You just kind of, you do get a similar setup where like these military guys are kind of like shooting the shit, but like really kind of as individuals. So we know that they're having trouble getting communication out, kind of similar to that original movie. And then, this Norwegian guy lands his helicopter. He's like shooting at people, throw grenades. The whole thing is actually kind of nuts.
It's pretty comical because the helicopter lands. So one guy's like on foot shooting at people and trying to get to that dog. And the other guy's got a grenade, but he has Butterfingers, Reggie, because the grenade slips out of his hand. And instead of running, he tries to dig for it in the snow, and then he and the helicopter blow up.
Yeah.
It's like what? Like, this is the first 5 minutes of the movie. You're just like, what is happening?
It was jarring. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Were there multiple people? Because I guess somebody was flying, right?
I think it was just, it might have been 3, but there was definitely 2.
There was 2 guys,
I assumed it was the pilot who fucked up the grenade thing.
Must have been, right? Like, well, anyway, not only does that guy get blown up, the other guy who was shooting at people, they basically shoot him in self-defense. And that comes into play because we recognize at some point that something's still alive. Ooh. Yeah. The setup is, like you mentioned, completely different because in the original you get sort of that origin of the ship and the thing, and this remake is like, all right, you've got the Norwegian, whatever that was, and then they're like, hey, we should go figure out what the hell they were doing. And by going to the location where you basically saw clues of what happened to this the Norwegian crew, I guess, as it were. You get a similar setup with a spaceship and the body that was in a block of ice. So some of the same things that happened in that original movie are kind of revealed as have happened previously in our remake.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice to not have this team, our main team, be the ones to discover the alien, that it's a completely different team. It's like you said, it's these Norwegian scientists, I guess is what they are. And we're kind of like halfway through the film before we kind of get that scene of like the spaceship in the ice using the thermite, just like the original. Like you said, getting the alien in that block of ice. It's almost like these Norwegians are taking the place of the scientists in the original film.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting way of doing it because you don't have to tell the same story beat for beat. You're kind of, well, it happened to them, and now we're doing it out of order. So it's a pretty interesting way of doing the same thing, but putting a nice twist on it.
Yeah, I think I think in a lot of ways it's a good homage, kind of, to have this movie be in the spirit of the film. But Carpenter gets to kind of direct and tell his own story here. So, like you said, if you're going to do the big spaceship and the block of ice, how do you put it? So I would say this, right? The remake does reveal certain alien aspects kind of early, but you really don't get into the meat of what happened, like you mentioned, until the middle of the film. Whereas the original, yes, they introduce like this alien aspect, but then once that gets introduced, they basically tell you everything about it. So
exposition.
To your point, when you're talking about setup, this remake allows for this almost like a psychological drama of like, what is this mystery? Who's an alien? Who's not? Kind of. In the original, it's not really a mystery as to who the alien is. They're kind of singularly focused on stopping the thing.
Right. Yeah, I think it's well, it's obviously sign of the times. Like, 1951, this original film's made. We're what, a few years after Roswell, so that alien craze is kind of really surging at that point.
Sure.
And there's, I don't know how many alien movies there probably were at that time, but I'm sure there was a ton. So everybody's kind of aware of it, but maybe some people are fresh to it, so that's why there's like a lot of explanation going on in that original film, as opposed to the remake where it's like it's already 1980 at that point. There's been a ton of alien movies at that point, so they choose to kind of just focus on the characters and kind of that, like you said, that psychological thing, like what's happening to them as these weird occurrences are happening, because it just might get like stale, like just explaining it like we did in the 1950 film, like, well, now we found an alien and now we're gonna trap him and then now he's gonna get out. It's kind of this generic formulaic story that's been told like a billion times before. So kind of mixing it up, saying, well, these guys found it and these normal guys are just kind of dealing with it. So it's not necessarily like military or experts or scientists and stuff like that. It's just these guys who are working in Antarctica, and it's it's just a good way of telling the story, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think, to your point, you're right that the 1951, it's kind of early in the craze, like you mentioned, but it is formulaic. It actually is very similar to when we watch War of the Worlds. And, there was basically a scientist type that explained everything that was happening about their tech, how it works. So even though, like, you basically check an alien's pulse, next thing you know, everyone knows every detail about it. And we'll get into sort of the alien differences in these two films. But, like, sure, that works in the 50s where you kind of get your kind of strong jawed, like, listen to me, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to stop it scenario. The remake is a lot more bleak, right? It's right. Because I was doing some research, as we typically do. One of the words that jumped out at me was it's sort of nihilistic, right? Like, it's not really going great in this remake. And you had some of that too, some of the danger in the original, but like this remake is really steeped in, you have no idea what's around the corner or what could happen, and that mystery really, in a lot of ways, I think elevates this genre, because otherwise it's a guy in a rubber suit, right?
Right. Yeah. So maybe we could pivot a little bit and just talk about these genres and sort of which each film represents more. So the original film seems like pretty typical 50s sci-fi, right? We have aliens from outer space and now we're going to fight them. It's pretty standard for your sci-fi movie coming out then. The remake, however, kind of leans a little bit more to the horror aspect. Like we said, a little less scientific, a little more psychological. So it's more of a sci-fi horror, or you can maybe just call it horror, really.
Yeah, I think so.
So I kind of think of this as it's not exactly, but it's kind of like when we did The Fly, right? Our first Fly was very sci-fi. The second one was just, holy shit. It's really terrifying as a horror. It's very similar what's happening here.
Yeah, I would say that that's a good comparison because, again, we always talk about sort of the spirit of the story. We're hitting these similar beats, but when you cross over genres like this, it just adds another layer. I appreciated the 1950s version and this sort of kind of like the mystery of, all right, does this creature come in peace? That gets solved very quickly. And then, it becomes sort of an idea of like, will man triumph over like an invading force? A lot of alien movies do that. And, this is one of the kind of OG alien movies. The remake, we're worried about, nice. We're worried about if man's going to win the day here. But I think somehow they took like the alien and made like your friend more like scary than the alien itself. Because like once you've identified the alien, there's ways to handle it. But until you're able to do so, you're in a really dangerous position. And that isolation, the not knowing who's your friend and who's your foe, works really well. In the original film, I thought the isolation was good because you knew the cavalry wasn't coming. But more or less, they were able to kind of band together as a collective, minus a few rogue actors.
Yeah. Maybe we should go into the alien more because that plays into why they were able to do that in the remake. They were really completely able to deviate from what the original did.
Yeah. I think we are going to kind of dance around this plot until we
until we get to the alien.
How these things work.
All right. So let's talk about the original alien since he's a little more simple. Our original alien's kind of a standard alien, especially for the 50s, a really tall man who's very strong. He's bald. They show you his face a little bit. They always call him ugly, and they're not pretty where he comes from. And he kind of has like rocks-looking things for hands. I'm not exactly sure, but this isn't a typical alien because it doesn't have like organs like anything that we know of. Instead, it's plant-based. A plant-based alien. It's an alien that I can eat, Reggie, because it is completely plant-based.
Right. It's a super vegetable.
That's right. Merely holes drilled into vegetable matter.
This green fluid here, like plant sap.
We'll probably find it has a sugar base.
Please, doctor, I've got to ask
Mr.
this.
Scott?
It sounds like, well, just as though you're describing some form of super Karen.
That's nearly right, Mr. Scott.
More or less. like a sentient carrot of some sort. Somehow, like, as the scientist character was describing it, I was like, no, this got less scary. But in some ways it didn't, because, there are advantages to being a super smart plant. I mean, we've seen, hell, Lord of the Rings, those things trees can get pretty violent. But like, yeah, it's kind of interesting. So like gunshots don't work on this alien because, like you mentioned, there's no organs.
Right.
But other things that would stop a vegetable do. But also, it doesn't just stop there though, because what was interesting about this alien, what I think was explored, it's a little more subtle in the remake when they explore this, but this alien basically procreates or regenerates pretty easily. Mm-hmm. Like you can make multiple of these things out of one pod, like some sort of seed or something, right? It feeds off of blood, and basically anytime it gets its hands on bloods, whether it's a dog, whether it's a human, whether it's just plasma you got sitting around the lab, this thing's able to survive and sort of recreate itself. So that's a very unique take on the alien genre, because I've never heard of a super carrot, basically. Like outside of cartoons, and like the idea of like the blood regeneration was actually interesting. You don't see that often in the genre.
Yeah. So he, like you said, he does need blood to kind of thrive. He doesn't really have too many sort of qualities like of a plant. The only thing that's sort of scary about him being a plant is that he can kind of reproduce on his own, and he can also like grow back limbs. He's able to grow his arm back after it's ripped off by the dogs. So the threat isn't just him at a certain point. It's like of him like being able to grow this army, and that can kind of work, you know. I mean, it's still kind of silly because it's like, oh, it's a vegetable at the end of the day, but you know, he's strong and he wants blood, and if there's more of him, that's a big problem. So yeah, I guess as far as weird aliens go, he wasn't too like, oh, this is lame. It was all right, the plant direction, and then they kind of, you know, they describe like certain plants how they need to eat animals, I guess, or like insects and stuff like that. So you know, they kind of stretch on that
tree or whatever.
Yeah, it works, and then you know, you look at it through the 1950s filter, so you're like, okay, yeah, sure, vegetable alien, why not? No organs, can't get shot. Okay, that's superpower for vegetables. Why not?
Going back, looking at this through the lens of like the 50s, as you're describing. There's a couple factors here that I think flavor the alien genre, right? One, you do have the Roswell, sort of the flying saucer. Did the government cover it up? That's still a question that we're asking today, right? About that. And also, you're dealing with a world that literally just went through 2 world wars back to back. So we're looking at aliens through the lens of invaders.
Right.
So the fact that you could make an army of aliens quickly, I think audiences at the time really understand the threat of a impending menace. So, you know, I think they chose kind of, you know, the vegetable things, whatever. But like, I think they chose a smart way to show this this threat. And, you know, again, a lot of things are revealed in this original film, but some things aren't. And is this the first wave, you know, kind of War of the World style? Is there more coming? That gets talked about a little bit more towards the end of the film, but you know, for what it is, like you mentioned, I think this is a strong alien. I've definitely seen worse.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really have anything to add to that. Should we go on to the remake Alien?
Yeah, the remake Alien gets interesting.
Remake Alien is completely different. It's not a being or a creature like the original. You don't see an alien. We never find out exactly what they found in the ice. Instead, this alien is able to imitate other living beings. So, like you said before, those Norwegians were shooting at the dog, the husky, it's because that was the alien. And it's not limited to just dogs. It can also become humans. So after the dog kills a bunch of other dogs and then they kind of light that on fire, they start to get paranoid. Everybody who's working in the Antarctica, and they start to like think, well, maybe anybody could be an alien then at this point. So it's the opposite of what you were describing in the original film, where the enemy's from the outside. Now the enemy's going to be from within. And as far as retelling a story, that's great. that's a nice fresh perspective, right?
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. It's such a fresh perspective because, you know, though with some of the practical effects, which are actually fairly strong in this movie.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
For the time, some of it hasn't aged well, but I would say the majority of it actually still looks pretty good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you see the alien, that's horrific, and you know, almost like the movie Alien style, like things can pop out and grab your arm and stuff like that. And big teeth and claws and tendrils, and like this alien is multifaceted, my friend. But like weirdly enough, that's not when this alien's the scariest. This alien's the scariest when you're just, hey Bob, how's it going? You know, we're sitting next to the water cooler. Next thing you know, someone's stealing your identity. And the threat is so intense that, you know, there are characters that like quite literally contemplate like suicide. They're like, I don't want to get impersonated by this alien. So basically, you're in a situation where you would rather not be alive than deal with like whatever this alien is going to do to you. It's such a different take on this, and just that idea of having it be a dog first is one of the smartest choices I think that they made in the film, in the sense that like it could be anything at this point. All right, there's a dog maybe it's this dog, maybe it's, you know, a polar bear. Like, who knows what the hell it is, but it's out there.
Yeah,
really cool setup.
Yeah, it's a really interesting setup. And you're right, it really doesn't kick in until like after that alien dog like it does its thing where it's like tentacles are everywhere and the, you know, the horrible stop motion, but it's okay. It's all forgivable. Yeah. But yeah, when they're all like kind of like turning on each other and they're like, I'm not sure. The one doctor is like looking up a computer program that tells him there's a 75% chance that at least one member of the crew is infected. So then he starts to freak out, and it's great because there are consequences to this. One member does get shot. He's not an alien.
Right. So,
and like Keith David's character, Childs, says, he's like, that. Well, he wasn't an alien. That makes you a murderer. So yeah, we have straight up murder in this sci-fi horror movie where an innocent guy is killed because this paranoia is just really intense among this crew.
Young Keith David, the voice of Spawn. That's
yeah, man. His voice, he still has that voice at that young age too. It's great
voice. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. Like that idea is interesting too. Like the fact that he messes up, like he kills the wrong guy. Another element that I think they play into well, because, you know, there is the isolation in the first film where, you know, it's hard to reach people, but there's also, on top of that, this movie takes it even a step further, because when they talk about the Norwegian crew and even their own crew, they're like, well, it was only, I forget what it was. Was it 8 weeks or something like that? It's like, that's not enough time to go crazy. And it was like, up here, yeah, it is. So, I mean, before you even recognize potentially that this is all the alien, there is this specter of, do they have cabin fever, as they call it, you know? Like, are these people just losing it? Like when that, like you mentioned, the guy starts freaking out because the 75% chance I'm talking to an alien. You know, is that the alien? Is that being in Antarctica? Like, what is it? So it's really cool that they play with just the psychology of being isolated in the first place. And then it goes over the top when you got creatures from outer space, you know, killing your crew and potentially overtaking the planet. Again, the humanity of the film elevates the science fiction of the film. It's really, again, they took this setting that was there in the original and took it a step further, which, you know, most of the time we're watching remakes, we don't actually get to see people take those chances.
Yeah, it was a really smart decision to kind of focus on those characters and just, man, just who is it? It's such a good, I mean, it's a not too common trope, but it's such a good hook just to really get you in. Like, who is the alien? And then I was playing the guessing game myself. I was like, it's definitely Kurt Russell. That guy's fucking nuts. Right. This is definitely the guy.
He's sitting there with the ice on his beard.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this just kill him.
It's like, bro, chill out. In a lot of ways too, like it's true that like Kurt Russell could be the villain, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like he's acting very strange. But you know, even beyond that idea of like even the guy we're following could be the bad guy, there's also the element, again, less pronounced, but this alien can sort of respawn and like parts of it can live on and stuff like that. Even its blood can like freak out and become sentient and stuff. So pretty much if there's a trace of this alien or this thing, then you potentially have an imitation happening. And that, again, something that was introduced in the original film, but taken a step further in this remake. I think we're going to say that a decent amount about this film, that they one more step. You know,
Right.
it's interesting.
Yeah, because that original, it's very simple. You got this plant-based alien, and then it's trying to kill everybody, and then they try to light it on fire, it gets away. They try to lock it in a room, it gets out. It's almost kind of like one of those early slashers, kind of like this unstoppable serial killer that's just trying to kill you. But it's not quite that film because it doesn't have the body count really. It's actually very safe, the film, because a lot of deaths happen off screen. I think the only human characters in the original film are killed off screen, and then you just hear about them, like, and then he strung them upside down and slit their throats. You're like, whoa, are they gonna show that? No, they don't. They never show anything approaching that at all. So a couple humans die. Even the one human you think is going to die, the guy who's like trying to be on the side of the alien, like, stop, you stupid military man, we have to talk to it, not fight it. And you're like, oh, he's he's gonna get his, and then he does get his, but he's just like, oh, he's just a little roughed up. It's like, oh, what the fuck? I want to see somebody die, you know? It's like, I don't even
bloody nose or broken collarbone. It's like, that's not enough.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know who died because their deaths were off screen, and it's like it's a black and white movie, and you know, not for nothing, but everybody kind of looks the same.
Seriously.
So it's like, all right, what's going on here? And you know, it's just very different in the original, where we have, you know, these very different characters. They have very distinct character traits that are introduced pretty early. So we know, like, oh, that's the weird guy, that's the roller skating guy, that's the paranoid guy. So even though there's like all these characters in the remake, they really do a good job of, you know, distinguishing them among one another. And it gets pretty gory for some of their deaths. There are some off-screen deaths in the remake too, and I read that it was mostly due to like budget issues, that they just couldn't film certain scenes. But there are some very gruesome deaths at the same time. So it's pretty intense, that remake.
Yeah. And I think, you know, without really getting into sort of like the end of these aliens, I think it is important to talk about their weaknesses, because I heard you talking about, you know, trying to burn them and all that other stuff. I kind of laughed in the original when the sort of that love interest character, when they started talking about it being a vegetable. Of course, the lady in the movie was like, "Oh, like, why don't you cook it or like boil it or something?" And it just made me think of like Lord of the Rings, like, boil and mash them, stick them in a stew. You know, that's for the nerds. But like, yeah, that's a weakness, right? Like, so gunshots don't really work. Even when people are shooting their guns, they're not aiming great. Like the guy jokes him, is like, "Hey, you want to try to raise that barrel a little bit next time?" But like, yeah, this alien is susceptible to specifically flame. You know, if it's a vegetable, it can be cooked. In the remake, sort of the same setup. You know, it's not a vegetable, but fire is its weakness.
Right.
And again, it's introduced in this film not by some lady saying, if it's a carrot, you should cook it.
Because there are no ladies, as we've established.
That's true. Had there been one, perhaps she would to help them. But in the remake, it's interesting that they learn about this weakness again from the Norwegian crew.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that sort of what's cool about this film is that there was the trial and error.
Yeah.
On the other side, you see how bad it can get, and the same scenarios happening to them. But you know, they notice the burned bodies of the aliens, and that tips them off as to that's a weakness, and it comes into play with, like we mentioned, the aliens' blood, and you know, get that hot enough, it might freak out. So.
Yeah, it's the fire in the original film. There's a pretty intense action sequence. I want to get into that because we're talking about this. They decide, like, we got all these tubs of kerosene, so let's just throw it at him and then light him on fire. And they don't, they don't show you a lot of deaths, but they don't, you know, pull any punches when it comes to this scene, because like they fucking legit light this dude on fucking fire, and then like. All the actors are just like in the room. It's like one shot. It's not intended to look cool like what they do with today's one shots. It's just like, this is the style of the time. They're just gonna do one long shot of this dude constantly getting lit on fire. like you said, our lead actress is in the room too, like just behind like a fucking mattress or something.
Yeah.
And that shit catches on fire. I was just like, what? Do they even have like the safety protocols in the 50s?
No, they didn't.
They're just like, just fucking light everything on fire. Like, so that, just because like I didn't think they knew what they were doing, that just like shocked the shit out of me. I was like, they're just gonna burn the whole goddamn set down.
Yeah, I was watching the scene. I was like, that's crazy, because like that guy's on fire, right?
Yeah, that guy's legit on fire.
And you're right. Like, we're not talking about stunt doubles. It's like you got your whole crew potentially going up in flames. And again, not only that scene, like I freaked out too, but I also kind of laughed because the guy was like, "Yeah, we almost burned down the whole place."
Yeah.
Like in character, and just like, "Yeah, maybe next time a little bit lighter on the fire." I'm like, "Yeah, you think?" But yeah, in terms of action, that was definitely a standout scene to me because what they did there, without revealing the end, was much more climactic. Yeah, like it was a much more interesting scene than how the alien ultimately, gets addressed in that film. But it's just like, yeah, they lit a guy on fire and just had it running through a room. Cool.
It's pretty awesome. They're just, they did this in the 50s. They just lit everything the fuck on fire. That's insane. It's an enjoyable scene and just like completely unsafe looking. So,
yeah. No one thought that through.
No, I don't think they did. But hopefully nobody was injured. I didn't look up anything to see if anybody was, but I'm going to assume everybody made it out okay after that shot.
Yeah.
And then in the remake, we don't just throw kerosene because that's so lame. What do we got to do, Reggie? We got a fucking flamethrower. Multiple flamethrowers in this remake, and they don't like wait till like the end. They're like, the fucking dog just turned into an alien like 20 minutes in the movie. Get the fucking flamethrower.
Yeah.
Like before Kurt Russell even sees what this thing is, we're just like heard like Max says, "Get the flamethrower." The guys are what? They don't waste any fucking time in the remake.
I love that they had flamethrowers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ice. They're doing research. Maybe they got
fair enough.
Make some tunnels or something. Who knows?
It doesn't matter to me. There were flamethrowers. I mean, it's worth it just to have, like we mentioned, Kurt Russell is just like looking disheveled, and he's, like I said, he's got dynamite in one hand and flamethrower in the other one. Like, don't make me do it, man. And then, like, just the absurdity of everyone's tied up in chairs. He's just sitting there like, yeah, I'm gonna test your blood. All right, you're good.
Let's talk about the blood testing since you're talking about it. I want to get into that scene more because it is pretty absurd when you think about it.
So I guess to kind of start that off, just to make a parallel with the original. In the original, we have like a kind of scientist guy who kind of turns into an evil scientist because our safety is not more important than science, was his rationale. And basically him and some of his science buddies were like growing these things. It's like, wait a minute, we're trying to deal with this one. You're growing more? What the fuck is wrong with you? So like there's kind of that betrayal and secrecy in the original film in that sense. In the remake, the betrayal and stuff like that is built in because anyone could be an alien.
Right.
And because of that mystery element, they have to come up with tests to figure out who's an alien. Mm-hmm. And one of them is his blood test, if you want to pick up from there.
Yeah. So just backtracking a little bit, like one of the guys was infected. He was an alien. And then Kurt Russell noticed as they were burning him that like even like any part of him that got burned, like it hurt the whole alien. Like it was like everything was like an important part of the alien. So like even the blood would hurt it. Like so he realizes like if we just burn everybody's blood, a little sample of your blood, we'll find out who the alien is. So he somehow agrees to get everybody tied up. Seriously. Even this is after they already suspected him of being the alien. Right. But he's got that dynamite though, so I guess he's pretty convincing. He's holding that dynamite, go, "You're gonna all tie yourselves up." and I'm gonna test your blood. And they're like, okay. So that's kind of what happens.
And just to even backtrack a little bit before that, I forget the character's name. I think it's like Folks or something like that.
Yeah, FAUC
yeah.
or
No idea how to pronounce it because honestly, a lot of these characters are expendable. But like he does see that like McCready's like jumpsuit or something like that
right.
out in the snow. So he's like, "Is this guy a fucking alien?" And he leaves him out to die in the snow. Which if you left me out to die in the snow, I might take a flamethrower and some dynamite. But I just wanted to add that element because you're right. At this point, is McCready like you mentioned before? Is he an alien? And if so, how did he convince everybody to tie themselves up?
Well, he's got that dynamite, so I guess that's pretty convincing. It's funny too, because like you think like everybody's paranoid of him. You think he'd start by like burning his own blood first, but he doesn't. He burns somebody else's first, and then he goes, "Well, now it's time for you to know what I already do." And then he burns his blood. So they pretty much like get like a sample of everybody's blood, put it in like a little dish, and then burn like a safety pin,
like copper wire,
or something like a paper clip or something, and then they just put it to the blood, and like everybody's like, if no reaction, then that person's not the alien. So they're all tied up, and then they test it on somebody. I forget exactly the guy's name, but he freaks out. Turns out he's the alien, but he's tied up right next to two other dudes who are just freaking the fuck out, like, oh my god.
Yeah, you got Childs over here like, untie me, motherfucker. Oh man, that is a fun. Like, I don't know if they intentionally wanted it to be that kind of hilarious. I mean, it is both horrifying and kind of hilarious because it's like, no.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show you they're not the best planners. Like, oh yeah, if somebody is an alien, that's kind of fucked up for the other people who are tied up right next to them. Maybe we should have, put them in separate areas of the room. Therefore, it'd be easier to handle this alien instead of like, what do we do now? Because he's right next to those other two guys. So,
I like
planning
that,
in that remake.
Yeah, it's poor planning because there is a moment in the movie where I think Gary or something like that is basically the guy who should be in charge, but he felt like he wasn't up to it. He's like, nah, I'm good. But Kurt Russell's been drinking for like 8 hours. This guy's been drinking a bottle of J&B for fucking the whole movie, and he's the guy coming up with the plans. Yeah, of course he tied everybody.
Well, first Childs is like, I'll be in charge. And we're like, whoa, we're not gonna let the black guy be in charge. Let's let the drunk white guy be in charge.
No, the black guy, he's too
hot-headed. That was the excuse. I'm like, really?
Yeah. Okay, he's the hothead. The other guy with the dynamite. He's fine.
The other guy says, I'm going to fucking kill you if you don't back the fuck off. Yeah, we put him in charge. So very poor planning all around with this crew. just a lot of stupid little mistakes. I mean, error is human, so they're not going to do everything perfect.
This is the type of stuff that a bunch of guys up in Antarctica might do, I actually like that that they're messing up.
Yeah.
I think that it shows that, like, I would rather see kind of that element than kind of what you get in that original, which is just, we can do anything. And it's like, nah, maybe not. Oh man, that's a really fun scene.
Yeah. Are there any other like fire scenes in either movie where they are and scenes in general where they fight the alien that are kind of noteworthy?
So in the original, I did want to make note of, like you mentioned a lot of the off-screen deaths, but I wanted to make note of one, the idiot, like you mentioned, that put an electric blanket on the fucking freezing ice block with a creature from space on it. He's like, I don't want to look at this thing. I also don't want to unplug this electric blanket.
Why is this blanket warm for no reason? Oh, well, better put it on this block of ice.
Yeah. All right. Hey, man, I knocked out this window, so it'll be really cold in here. You stay warm. The alien stays cold. Like, idiot. But when they figure out the arm thing, which we kind of talked about, but like there are scenes where they go into that greenhouse in the original that I thought were kind of cool, and they had to like kind of close the door and fucking arms hanging out. So like there is some action, like we mentioned in this original. So I guess, I mean, that's really it. The greenhouse, the fire scene, and our ultimate kind of ending. But, you know, got to bring up the greenhouse because to me, it's sort of the equivalent of the scene we just talked about with everyone tied up. Kind of.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, they don't show the alien too much in the original film. They talk about him a lot before you actually see him, like, because they could see him through the ice and we were not able to. Same thing with the UFO. Like, there's not really a UFO in that original film. It's just like a fin that's sticking out of the ice, and then you just see, oh, it's exploded, so we can't even see the UFO now. The remake has a little more of a budget where you actually do see the whole UFO, so, you know, I'll give it to the remake there. But, you know, you got to make do with what you got in the 1950s. So if a fin under the ice is enough to say it's a UFO, and then just describing it like, look at us in a circle, like it's a flying saucer, like one of those Martians. That's another thing they do a lot in that original. Alien and Martian are kind of interchangeable.
They're interchangeable. Man from Mars. There's another scene, I forget exactly the setup for it, but where with just kerosene, they burn an alien in a remake. Like they do another scene where they burn some.
Yeah,
creature.
I think I might know what you're talking about. There's a scene where one of the guys is there with one of the dead bodies or something, and then he gets like strangled by the weird alien tentacle thing, and then he kind of breaks out, and they catch up with him outside, and then this is where you're sort of introduced to the idea that the alien could be anybody, because he's not fully transformed yet. Like, he looks like the guy, but his arms look completely yeah. And at that point, they're like, well, we gotta fucking burn it all. So we gotta burn the aliens. We gotta burn any dead bodies. Nothing from this alien could be alive. It'll just imitate.
For you Game of Thrones fans, this is the Nightwalker theory. leave nothing behind.
There you go.
That was, you're right. That was a little bit earlier on. One of the first real like imitation reveals. Like, it's not fully formed. That was a really smart way to kind of show the danger that they were in. There was so much other cool stuff happening that I kind of forgot what the setup was. But then like I said, Game of Thrones style, I just burn this guy. You see, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of practical effects were obviously pre-CGI, and I think most of it holds up pretty well. Like that scene where like the guy's arms come up and they don't look human. That's pretty convincing. I don't think like, oh, that looks like stupid and rubbery. It's a lot of kind of like, how do I describe this? Almost like skinless, like wet, skinless alien approach. It's just to how it looks like when it's not in an animal or human form, when its true identity is kind of revealed, I guess. Very wet looking and very bloody and skinless. It's pretty gross, and you know, it looks good, but like, you know, the stop motion I think is where it kind of like where it doesn't age too well. Like there's the one scene where the guy's just ahead, and then the sort of like insect legs come out of it. So it's just like, all right, not that good there, but you know, it's looked good enough to this point. They don't rely too heavily on the stop motion, so I'm allowed. I'll give it a little bit of a forgiveness.
There's like two questionable, like you mentioned, stop motion kind of things, but like when it's sort of just like a set piece, right? Like here it is, here's the alien anatomy. It works really well. Like you were saying, like the wet look. Again, another weird reference, but in Invader Zim, the children's cartoon, there's a scene where it's like, let's see what your organs look like on the outside, and it like there's a lot of that, like squishy organ-like stuff, wet, bloody, gross. It works really well. Freaked me out. Even like you mentioned, I know it's fake, but it's still your mind. You know, it plays tricks on your mind. That was really good effect. So I would say that was the highlight of
definitely. Like when they go to the Norwegian camp for the first time, and then they find the alien carcass there, and then they bring it back, and then they show you the face. Like they've kind of showed you like parts of the body, but then they actually like do a close up of the face, like after they're done talking about it. It's freaky looking. It's like two faces, like sort of side by side, but they're not symmetrical. So it's like it's pretty jarring. So it looks good. Like it's just like you said, it's just like a set piece that doesn't really move or anything. It looks great, and it looks pretty solid. Like that's a fucking freaky looking alien for sure.
Yeah, I think your comparison to The Fly definitely fits here. Like anything that's sort of in this grotesque, like middle ground between man and alien or dog and alien, like that's when these effects really shine, because when you don't really have a frame of reference for the thing, their creativity really shines. When something is sort of supposed to look human-like, that gets iffy here and there. But yeah, that stuff really worked. Even the chair scene, which like you mentioned, some of the stop action, but like the way like the alien's body like extends and his foot goes to the floor, like it's really, for the most part, believable. I enjoy the effects.
Yeah. And if you don't really have anything approaching that in the 1950s film, like I was saying, you barely see the alien. I think part of that is because when you do see him, it's just like, oh, it's a really tall, bald man.
Yeah.
So he's not really intimidating. Sure, he's got the weird, stony looking knuckles and everything, but he's just kind of like a dude in a jumpsuit, and doesn't really talk, and it kind of grunts. I don't know. It's okay. What are you gonna do? It's the 1950s. I'm not expecting to be blown away by their alien.
It's like Kane from wrestling with little tentacles sometimes. Like, yeah, guy in a jumpsuit running around being all tall. Like a lot of these films, it works actually better when you get sort of the hint of the alien.
Yeah.
Or once you actually see the movie monster, sometimes it does take you out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that Jaws effect. Like not seeing it makes it a bigger threat, because like you don't know when it's gonna come, and like when it does finally come, you're like, oh, he looks pretty fucking silly, doesn't he? but yeah, just the not knowing is definitely the scarier part. Your imagination is scarier than what that they did with that alien.
Absolutely. Do we want to try to because I know we've talked about this alien quite a bit. Do we want to try to describe some of our crew? Because
we can do that. Yeah.
Sure. We'll start with kind of like our the square jaw, like the lead type character. In A Thing from Another World, Kenneth Tobey plays Captain Patrick Hendry.
Come here. Get in the corner. Now hold this in front of you. Stay by the light switch.
Hendry, it reminds me of Goodfellas. How you doing, Hendry? I'm gonna make a lot of references. And then Kurt Russell plays McCready. So these two kind of occupy that same space, right? Like, a tough, but they smart enough to lead other people. People tend to, except for when they're being absolutely insane in the remake, tend to follow them and trust them. And it helps to have that sort of grounding figure in both movies, even if it is just kind of like your standard. Boy Scout's not the right word, but like your standard, I'm the lead male actor in a movie. Toby's Captain Hendry, though, like, I don't know, very much a 50s portrayal. Like it feels almost like film noir at times. Like everyone's a fast talker. Call the captain. What's he say? He said that? Tell him this.
I can't believe I'm not getting this scoop. Oh, shut up, Scotty. It's a lot of dialogue happening very fast, yes.
7.
What was that?
Sounds like a window. 1.8.
Come up with lights.
1.9. The needles hit the top.
Yeah. I do like that he has his love interest in Margaret Sheridan's character, Nikki Nicholson. And I thought it was actually kind of interesting how much they talked about like their last encounter, right? It was kind of a lot of talk about getting down for the 50s. But
yeah, I guess they have a history. I didn't think their love story was that interesting, actually. So I'm gonna disagree with you there.
That's fair. I guess it's interesting the fact that it's there and it's not in the remake.
Yeah, I guess so. We have this Hendry, and then we have this love interest, Nikki Nicholson, and she doesn't really do anything other than what you said. She's like, yeah, you boil a vegetable, and that's the only thing I can really think of.
She's
that she
also
does
keeping a pretty intense secret because she knows what the scientists are up to.
Oh, when they're growing the stuff.
Yeah. It's like, well, I'm not supposed to tell you because I work for these guys. I'm like, all right, weird time to keep your allegiance to your fucking job, you know? No, you're right. It's not that interesting, but but she's there. And
she is there, and they have a history, and they like to drink. And for some reason, later in the movie, he's going to be tied up while she pours drinks down his throat. Yeah. You know, that's what you have in your sci-fi alien movies. Man just having a drinking competition while he's pretending to be tied up.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think the only reason I brought both those people up is because they're characters, and the fact that they kind of like each other is the character trait that they have.
That is their character trait. The movie kind of weirdly revolves around this love story that they have going on, and the whole time you're just like, "Are we really doing this? Like, we're really doing?" And then it's part of the ending, so it really plays into the story.
For some reason. Anyway, I bring all that up really just so we can talk about the real guy we want to talk about, Creedy. I don't know. I like this. I like a lot of Kurt Russells, but this is maybe one of my favorite Kurt Russells.
Yeah, he's great. I love his introduction too. He's like playing chess on his computer, and then he's drinking and he loses. So he has some gamer rage. He's like, "Fuck this!" He just pours his drink on the computer, and he's like, "Fuck, no fucking computer is gonna beat me at chess." I think he called it a cheating bitch when he lost.
That's the exact line. It's like, "Rook to A4, you cheating bitch."
Checkmate. Checkmate.
Bitch.
And you know, it's one of the metaphors because he's going to be playing chess with these aliens later.
But he's not a scientist. He's just, as far as I can tell, he's just the helicopter pilot.
I think so. Yeah, I think him and Childs are pilots.
Okay.
And then all the eggheads are doing egghead stuff, but like.
Right. But Kurt Russell's going to get drunk in his shack the whole time.
He's going to get drunk. He's an intellectual. He plays chess. He's not that much of an intellectual because he loses.
And he's a very sore loser.
Yeah. And breaks his only source of entertainment. Like, it's a good intro. Like this gruff, rough around the edge guy who, we know he's a little rough around the edge because he's drinking. And, throughout the film, we learn that he doesn't take shit.
No, he does not take shit. He told that computer he's going to tell this fucking alien.
He's going to tell the computer. He's going to tell his friends that I will blow us all up. He'll fight the guy who tried to stab him with the scalpel. Like this guy is no joke. And he's the type of character that you would expect to stick around a decent amount in this type of scenario.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The fearless guy would definitely be able to survive this whatever impending horror that's coming around. But it's funny though, because like early, when they have to first fly to the Norwegian camp, he's like, I don't know, the skies look kind of a little rough. I don't know if I can fly. It's like, shut up, McCready. You get up there, it'll be nice and clear.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like what's cool, like you mentioned before about this remake, is that everyone does have character traits.
Right.
So some characters kind of naturally have their alliances based off their own backgrounds with each other, and others have tension. Like him and Childs, they're good enough friends, but like they fight.
Right.
They fight all the time, and it's a good dynamic to have that human element of, all right, these two people probably trust each other more than this set of people might. Right. So when there's this natural distrust of who's an alien,
right?
It plays really well here, and for some reason, Childs is just he's too much of a hothead. Versus like the original, there's no tension like that. Like if you follow Captain Hendry and that's it. And
well, there's tension because there's that sort of split between the scientists and the military. So there's a little bit there.
Well, I guess I was going to say that. From like the military perspective, excuse me, you're right that like there's no tension there. But when it comes to scientists, it's like, well, you know what? I am lying. There's a lot of tension. Scotty wants his story, and he can't get his story until he talks to people. The scientists want science, and he's like, shut up. This is Air Force business. So yeah, you know what? There is tension. Huh? More character traits, Dan.
No.
Yeah, but where do you go from there, right?
Yeah, where do I go from there?
It's like you got this alien. Do we want to talk about this scientist?
We could talk about the other characters too, since we are kind of dropping them. Yeah, if you want to just add the scientist, since that is a source of tension in both films. So we have Robert Cornthwaite as Dr. Arthur Carrington.
That not even the world's greatest scientific minds can answer.
Gentlemen, do you realize what we've found? A being from another world, as different from us as one pole from the other.
In the original. And we have Wilford Brimley as Dr. Blair. You know, and they're both sort of a pain in the ass for our lead macho man. So I'll start with the original. Dr. Carrington, just he's just a man of science. As soon as the alien's discovered, he just immediately wants to study it. But Captain Henry's like, no, I need to hear the orders from Fogarty back at home. So nothing happens until we get the orders from the top. The whole time, sort of Carrington's just like, I just want to study the alien. And then once the alien gets out, once they're like, we're on the defense, now we got to defend ourselves against this thing. Carrington's still like, no, man, can't we just study it? Like, what's going on here? So those two are going to butt heads a lot. It doesn't really go anywhere, though. Like you said, he does grow the plants. There's no consequence from really growing the plants. They don't really sort of do anything to Carrington. They don't really like lock him up. They sort of put him away so he can't like do any harm or anything. But all that really happens is Carrington just gets punched by the alien. So there's not like that human versus human element doesn't really come into play at all.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
It's there, and Carrington has this more or less theory that it's this vegetable is so damn smart that like we're its inferiors. Please, Mr. Vegetable, tell me all the secrets of the universe. And you're right, like that thirst for knowledge clouds his judgment, because at a certain point, he's trying to make nice with this alien, and that is how he gets punched, trying to be friends with the creature that's been killing off people and like stringing them upside down. I mean, I guess that's easy to overlook when you're growing more of them in your basement. But yeah, Carrington, you're right. Like there's a lot of this grandstanding and this big sort of these flowery speeches about science and man and what we're gonna do, and it ultimately kind of ends in like, shut up. Which I'm okay with. Because I don't think they were ready to necessarily explore the real implications of what they were doing. They just had this natural foil of like, the military guys are going to do what the military guys are going to do, and the sciences guys are going to do what they're going to do. And they're competing interests that have to kind of come together by the end and say, hey, how do we stay alive?
Yeah. I mean, it ultimately makes sense with sort of the direction they were going. The enemy is from the outside. Mm-hmm. This isn't about us and our differences. This is about us coming together and destroying this enemy from the outside. So they stay on message by not having the ultimate conflict become between the lead military guy and the lead scientist. Yeah. Let's just get him punched, get him out of the way. Let's just take care of the real threat, the enemy from the outside.
Yeah, and I think because of some of the limitations that this film has, like you mentioned, the spaceship gets blown up and other things don't get seen. I think part of it is you got to round out your movie with something. So adding that element is just, more kind of padding, more backstory for the film. And it breaks things up between, look, you're only going to light a guy on fire only so many times. So, you got to fill your time with some other things.
Yeah, so they created some tension that was not really that important, but, just to keep the story interesting so it's not all on the alien who we don't see for most of the movie.
Right.
Now, a very different doctor from our remake, our Dr. Blair. Wilford Brimley, who seems pretty, level-headed at first. But then, as soon as he gets on that computer and he plays his little simulation of the alien cell eating the dog cell and becoming the dog cell, then somehow it just tells him 75% chance that one of your buddies is infected. Then he starts to fucking just get off the reservation at that point.
He loses it. Now, I'll never understand these like 80s and 90s era computer programs that just like, oh, you got an alien here? Yeah, let me just run some simulations for you. Then the text comes up and it's like 75% chance of the Earth. Like, what program?
Yeah, how does it? The chance that if someone you know is an alien program? I didn't know they had those in the 80s.
Run alien.exe. Like, what the fuck? It's absurd, but like, it works. Look, everything's just kind of laid out right. There's 75% chance the guy you're talking to is an alien within 27,000 hours. If one of these things hits civilization, the whole world is going to get overtaken by these imitation alien things, right? So the reality of the existential dread that all of humanity is going through at the moment is just too much for Wilford Brimley. Diabetes not so much, but this is too much. And man, does he start freaking out? Like, this guy he's destroyed the generator, he destroyed their communications,
he destroyed the helicopter, the tractors,
the dogs that were still alive.
Dude, you don't see it, but you see the aftermath. You just see dead dogs with an axe like stuck in their necks.
Oh my god.
And he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And which sets up that great scene later, which it's definitely an alien. He's like, guys, I'm okay now. Like, you can let me out now. It's like,
I'll admit, I flew off the handle a little bit, but I'm okay now because I was in this room for an hour.
Yeah, by myself.
Not building an alien spaceship.
Yeah, it's like he's not evil, right? Like, he's again, the psychological aspect of this film. It's overtaken him. In this case, it's because of an alien threat, but that could have happened after 9 months of being in the Antarctic by yourself with a bunch of guys you don't like that much.
Yeah, so it's kind of a combination, or it could be a combination of like that cabin fever mixed with this paranoia of the alien getting out. So it's like he's sort of. You can sort of see where he's coming from, I guess is what I'm saying.
How do you make that noose that quick? Where do you get the materials?
I was wondering what that noose was. It was just, he made that, and it was just there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, man.
Yeah, you definitely seem better. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're doing crafts in here. Great.
You just close a little eye hole, like, all right.
That was pretty funny. Come on, you gotta let me out, Mac. Yeah.
Oh, man. But, I guess both scientists serve the same purpose. One looks at an arm, says, this is vegetable matter. It must be a super smart vegetable from outer space that's way smarter than us and is able to feed off of blood. And it's the greatest thing. We're going to win Nobel Prizes for this, versus Wilford Brimley, who's like, holy fuck. Earn it all down. Hey man, there's a middle ground somewhere between these two scientists, Ultimately, though, which one's crazier?
I mean, you got to go with Wilford Brimley just because of what we know he is in the end.
Yeah, it was like I'm sitting there like the guy's actively helping the alien that's trying to kill him. I'm like, that guy's pretty nuts. But then you look at Wilford Brimley and. I can't remember all the characters' names, but like the guys in the corner, he's got the bandage on his head, and he's just like, oh, make it stop.
Yeah, I think that was Windows. They got some interesting names in the remake.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, that was another, to me, standout character.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely get into him more when we talk about the ending, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Any other characters of note in the original? I mean, let's talk about Scotty a little bit.
Scotty!
We got ripped on Scotty. That's kind of what the other characters in the original do. You just kind of rip on Scotty.
Press the button to speak, Scotty.
Over.
Tell General Fogarty we've sent for Captain Hendry. He'll be here in a few minutes. Over.
Roger, over.
Are there any newsmen there who can hear me?
So Scotty's our beat reporter, just looking for that hot story, and he's just following these military guys until he could find it. So he's actually invited, out of the kindness of Captain Hendry's heart, just like, all right, if is it okay if we bring Scotty, because he needs a scoop. It's like, Jesus, what a nice person you are to bring Scotty along. And what Scotty don't know is that he can't get shit done.
Scotty can't do anything. Scotty doesn't know. He's not allowed to report on the facts. When he tries to take the photo, he trips on his own feet. I got a photo of the ceiling. It's like, yeah, Scotty, you fucked up. But, you know, he plays a lot of because there isn't much in this film, but he plays a lot of the comic relief.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the running bit is that, you know, Scotty's always just missing it, you know. Did you get your story, Scotty? He's like, no. Did you get the picture, Scotty? No. But like ultimately, weirdly kind of important by the end, you know, something I guess we'll talk about. Like, he gets a lot of talking time for a guy that's supposed to be our comic relief.
Yeah, so Scotty, comic relief, one of the few memorable characters that's like every time I saw him, I was like, oh, there's Scotty, because he was the only one that was bald, so that helps a lot. And he's sort of our comic relief. He sort of has a commentary on everything that's happening. I like the one part where they're getting the orders from Fogarty, and he's like, you should use thermites to blow open the UFO from the ice. He's like, ha, leave it to the top brass to have the same stupid ideas you guys have.
Yeah, Scotty, you know, like for a guy, I guess like him and Hendry's relationship, I got to kind of respect it, you know, even though we don't know a lot about both of them. The fact that he would say, all right, Hendry, I'm not going to, you know, let the scoop out until you let me, you know, that they have that type of trust amongst each other. And they do have the ability to kind of, I mean, Scotty's more the punching bag, but like Scotty punches back a little bit too in some ways.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I guess if you do have sort of this story of the century, there's this man from Mars, as it always is for some reason. Like, hey, I guess it's important for someone to be there to document it, and I think that does come into play a little bit later with Scotty in the film. But he is in a movie of. I remember the names of two characters.
Yes.
You know, Scotty's one of them.
Exactly. So, kudos to Douglas Spencer for giving us a memorable portrayal as Scotty.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the original film? Because there's not really one-to-ones. Everybody else is kind of forgettable.
Yeah,
honestly.
I was gonna say that, you know, in general, the crew from the original they're bad. They're not good. They don't do anything right. Besides, I guess the whole generator setup towards the end. But like, other than that, I mean, they're the guys that put the fucking electric blanket on the alien. You know?
Yeah.
A lot of things fall through the cracks of this crew, and I feel like the remake crew, especially with just Childs, you know, by himself, carries a lot more weight and does a lot more important things for the plot. So it's hard to remember anyone in the original, to be honest. It was funny though. Another aside, speaking about forgettable stuff, this was completely by accident, but I'm wearing my Midsummer Burn Him shirt.
Oh, very nice.
So,
very appropriate for this topic.
Two of my favorite movies about burning.
But getting back to those minor characters, they are very forgettable. Like I said before, two characters died off screen, and I guess that raises the tension. But it doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't even matter that they died, because like, who are they? Like, nobody seemed to care that these characters had died at this point. It was just like, well, I'm still gonna hit on you because I like you. So it doesn't matter. So very forgettable side characters, other than really the four we talked about. So let's move on to the more interesting characters in the remake. And we talked about Childs a little bit. You want to elaborate maybe a little bit more on Keith David?
I mean, for me, Keith David feels like sort of a counter sort of weight or like counterpoint to McCready,
Right.
in the sense that I think that they are in many ways equivalents. And I guess if he wasn't the hothead, I guess, then he would be the natural leader. Childs, very much like McCready, does not take shit.
Right.
And for me, like, that really stuck out. And again, because of that, it makes sense to me how long he lasts in the film as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right.
He's very similar to, if you subscribe to the theory that McCready is an alien, then Childs de facto becomes kind of like the hero of your film, because
right.
he's the only one that can really push back against him with any authority.
Right. Yeah, I definitely see Childs as the equal. Like, just they can go. I could see them going head to head, just like toughness, grittiness, physical prowess, whatever. They're the two tough guys that you don't want to fuck with. They could definitely take charge and like lead everybody. So I definitely saw them on pretty even playing field, except that I guess McCready just gets some dynamite and it's like everybody's like, all right, tie me up. But Child's pretty interesting character, and I mean, it's just Keith David, delivering a solid Keith David performance.
It's just that the voice, man, just that
that Goliath voice.
It's like I almost want to hear him just say shit. I just like this idea that him, rightfully so, questioning McCready's authority, because it's just like, wait a minute, like you mentioned, you killed that guy. He was not an alien. You're not acting, normal. Who says you're not an alien? All that stuff. So like, I think that you need a Childs in there to push back. Otherwise, we're just kind of watching McCready and just taking him at face value. And I think having like I mentioned, the counterweight is good for the audience too, because I'm sure there's tons of theories and things like that floating around the internet about what's happening in this movie and when.
No, it's great, because if you don't have Childs, then you are going to take McCready as the leader, and you're going to assume he's not infected because he has to be the leader. But you have somebody capable like Childs. Well, if McCready's infected, then Childs could easily just take his place. So you need that, and the fact that there's tension between them just strengthens that. So it's a very important character, and just the guessing game aspect is like, who's infected.
Right. I don't really have much else about Childs until sort of the end.
Yeah, he plays more in the end, or at the ending.
Yeah.
Other characters, small roles, somewhat memorable. We talked about Gary a little bit. He was kind of in charge. He's actually the guy that kills the Norwegian guy, Gary. Portrayed by Donald Moffat. And you think he's kind of the head honcho because he has access to the gun, and then, like I said, he kills the Norwegian guy. But his authorities questioned pretty quickly, he pretty much resigns. Like, he's like, all right, you don't want me to do this? I won't do this. Here's my gun. It's like, oh shit, okay, that was nice and easy.
Yeah, and kind of smart, actually. It's like, you know what?
Yeah, I don't need the onus. Onus is not on me anymore. Here we go. But he's a suspect, because he's one of the few people that has access to this key where they keep their plasma or the blood. No, plasma's the first movie. It's blood, and just in the second one, right?
Right. I think it's just blood.
Okay, so he has access to the blood, and everyone's like, well, how did it open if you're the only one that has the key? So like, you don't trust him for pretty much at that point until he gets tested. And then he finally gets tested, and we find out, oh, he's not an alien. And it's weird that Mac wanted to sort of test him last. And we're going to save you for last, Gary. It's like, why? The one guy you seem to be sure is an alien you want to save for last? All right, sure. I mean, he's not all there, Mac. So it's all right.
No.
But this is a pretty competent character. Like I said, it has memorable scenes. he's the leader, and then he just sort of resigns at
Yeah.
the mercy of everybody else. Like, all right, fuck this.
Yeah, you look at a character like that who keeps his head for the most part. I mean, you got some Norwegian running around your camp shooting people. He's just like, all right, well,
Yeah.
you handle this. Breaks out the window, shoots the guy. I mean, it's pretty impressive stuff. And even in that situation where he's tied up, he's taking it reasonably well for a guy who knows he's innocent.
Yeah. Until he passes the test, then he's like, all right, if you want to just let me out any fucking time now.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's great. Like any day now.
Yeah, so not huge towards the plot, but definitely has memorable scenes.
Yeah. And I think that is ultimately what works about these characters in this film.
Right.
They have strong enough character traits that, even without knowing much about them or even, frankly, remembering some of their names, kind of what their deal is. And, again, every character is elevated in this movie because any one of them might be your alien. So you're paying attention to everybody and what they're doing.
Like we said, there's a bunch of side characters. They all have their kind of traits. I don't know if we need to really get into all the traits. I don't think so either. But just overall, like in the package of like side characters, remake versus the original, the remake, hands down, just much more memorable characters.
Yeah, easily. I mean, I can name some of the characters
in
the remake. I struggle to do that with the original.
Scotty, that's all I got.
Yep.
Scotty. All right. Should we get into the endings? How we are able to eliminate this alien threat?
Let's talk about it.
All right. We'll start with the original because it's the more simple of the two. So, like we said, they had tried to light it on fire with that awesome action sequence of the kerosene just lighting the whole room on fire. Alien ultimately gets out. It's always funny though. Like every time the alien escapes, they're always like, "Oh, don't worry, he'll come back anyway." It's like you don't seem worried at all. Like maybe he's just gonna be out there. So yeah, he escapes, but he does come back. And yeah, I think who comes up with the idea of electrocuting it?
I don't recall who exactly came up with this plan, but it was one of the lieutenants that was there. Now, at this point, right, I believe this alien actually is pretty smart too, right? He cuts the power.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I'm trying to remember. Now, they were trying to say that basically that alien was trying to like freeze them out more or less.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it looks like.
So yeah, I mean, like.
Yeah, it was just one of his officers that's like, yeah, just hook it up over here. There's this random electrician guy too, who kind of comes in. I was like, I don't remember you from the first half of the movie.
Yeah. It's like a guy, like a grip was like, "Hey, I'm in the movie now."
We need somebody to explain how the electricity can work. I'll play that role, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's like you made it a vegetable, then like there's this big emphasis on the fly trap. But Carrington, the doctor, has been saying this whole time that this alien is smart, and this is the first example that we have of the alien kind of outsmarting them because they're stuck there. They're starting to realize like, hey, we're gonna get frozen if we don't, draw this guy out, do something quickly, and you get this very, very drawn out scene of, well, the power's out. Someone go hit the generator now. Unwind this metal, whatever, fencing almost, like whatever they're going to use their fly trap. Move slightly more into focus of the camera so that the alien will come this way. Then you get this way too much of the creature, like we said. You don't want to see your movie monsters. Just he's shuffling so slowly towards them. They're like, "Here he comes!" And again, that same lieutenant guy whose name cannot be remembered. I was like, "No, we got to get him on the walkway. He's he's not on the walk, and they like kind of throw something at him. And he's
yeah. Like throw a piece of wood at him. Oh no! Look out for the wood.
The guy just kind of like hops onto the pathway. I'm just like, okay, here we are. And then Carrington, this jerk, who he's back with the quote unquote the women and children broom. He somehow breaks out, and he's like, "You're way smarter than us. They're gonna try to kill you. Don't go that way. Teach me your secrets." And the alien bitch slaps him.
I got your secrets right here.
Yeah. Breaks his collarbone, throws him into the corner, keeps shuffling towards our heroes who are just like, come on, a little bit closer. It's like, wait till he gets in the middle, a little bit closer. And then eventually, they do the shitty lightning effect.
Yes.
Zap, zap, zap. Zap, zap, zap. A little bit longer. Zap, zap, zap. And we're led to believe that this alien has been handled. Carrington gets, detained or tied up, whatever the hell happens to him. They finally are able to get a message out to General Fogarty or whatever, the guy they've been trying to talk to the whole time. And you know what? Let's let Scotty tell it. Well, also, wait a minute, before we get there.
Right.
Hendry and Nikki have to have a serious conversation about their relationship and
right.
if he's going to settle down.
Right, because talking about, starting anew. Can we talk about that starting a new thing again? It's like, shut up about starting fresh. I don't care about your relationship.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah. The Earth was just attacked.
Yeah.
You two have plenty of time to figure this out on your own time.
Can I talk to the captain? Oh, sorry. Right now he's doing things that go above and beyond the Call of Duty, and that was just him talking to the girl. So it's like they really tied up that love story really nicely by just the captain's too busy to inform the higher ups of how he saved the Earth because he has to go on this date with this girl, and it's just. It just seems really silly to me. There was never like a sense of urgency in this original film. Like, oh my God, what are we going to do, man? Well, I better stop and just talk to this broad for a bit because I want to get in her pants.
Yeah, like that was kind of a singular focus for this guy the whole time.
Yeah, he could care less about the alien. It seems like at most parts. Yeah, he didn't really seem to care about that alien.
Yeah, it was a strange choice.
But like you said, after we get the bow on their relationship, Scotty does get to finally tell his scoop, and he has a message for the world to look to the skies. You'll never know what you'll see. Keep looking at those skies.
Watch the skies. Watch them everywhere. Watch them every day.
Which is
a pretty good monologue.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's actually not terrible, and it's as an audience member at that time, it's kind of exciting. It's like, wow, you're right, this could happen anytime. Maybe I should look at this guy's more. I actually did dream about aliens last night, so thanks, Scotty. I'm gonna blame you for that.
Beam me up. It was kind of cool because at that point, the movie was just doing what the movie did, but like it did put things into perspective. Scotty's like, we made contact, invaders from afar, and then he's just like gassing everybody up. He's like, yeah, and then these brave guys, they showed that alien what's what, and they came out and they were like, pow, pow, and then like it was pretty cool. A little too much patting themselves on the back for not doing that much, to be honest, to save the universe, but I mean. In that one dialogue scene, Scotty gets to send off our movie. Right. He gets elevated from comic relief to like the scion for like the future of humanity. Pretty damn cool. And he's going to win a Pulitzer or something like that.
Yeah. It doesn't even sell it the doctor. He's just like, and Carrington was just attacked. He doesn't say like, Carrington was attacked because he's a fucking idiot. You want to know what this fucking idiot scientist did? He doesn't do anything like that. And they're like, nice one, Scotty. Like, wow, way to cover up for the scientist. I was like, wow, that's okay.
Yeah. It was a feel-good ending.
Yeah. It was. I mean, the main guy got his love interest, and then Scotty got his day in the sun, so to speak. So
Yeah. And next time aliens want to come to Earth, Scotty let us know. It's it's not gonna be so easy, aliens, because we're watching.
There's a very different ending from our remake. I'm gonna start at the point where after they're done doing all the tests. So we got 4 guys left. We got Mac, Childs, Gary. Who's the 4th guy? It's Knowles, the roller skate guy.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we're gonna go outside and do the test to the doctor because the doctor has been isolated in that shack. So 3 of them go. They leave Childs behind, and they go there, and lo and behold, the doctor is not there. His door is wide open. Like, how did he get out? They never really explain it, but they do find that the wood floor, something's wrong with the wood floor. So they remove it, and they find a tunnel beneath the shack. The tunnel leads to a UFO all along. The doctor has been rebuilding a UFO using parts of the helicopter. And this is pure confirmation that the doctor is not human, that he's definitely an alien. So at that point, they're like, oh, fuck, we got to take care of him. So they decide to go find him, or is at that point where, like, I think one of them goes, I think Child's just, like, left. I don't know what happened with him. It's like, fuck, what are we going to do, man? All right, well, we're dead men anyway. There's only one thing we can do, man, and let's blow it all up. So they're just like, fuck yeah. So nobody objects. Like, oh, yeah, I guess we'll just blow everything to high hell. So they start just, like, blowing the whole facility up, crashing in, like, whatever cars remain, emptying kerosene, gasoline, whatever they can to light this fucker up. Yep. They go to set, I guess, explosives near some, like, parts that will explode in the facility. And while they're kind of down there, the doctor starts to attack. He kills Gary on screen. Knowles leaves. We never see him again. And then the alien and Kurt Russell kind of go head to head. But the alien's smart also, because it's one of those old sort of dynamite explosive detonators. Yeah, is that what's called, the plunger? Yeah, where you have to push it down and then it explodes. But the alien doctor just destroys that. He's like, fuck this shit, I'm gonna get rid of this and I'm gonna kill you. But Kurt Russell's like, you forgot I got this dynamite. So like Kurt Russell just throws that shit. The whole fucking factory explodes. Everything is on fire. Somehow Kurt Russell's Mac survives, like barely touched. Like, just like fine. This comes out and he's like, yep, I fucking blew it all up. And then Childs comes and they're like, oh shit, man, Childs is still alive. And like, what are they gonna do? Are they gonna fucking, this is it? East meets West, they're gonna just fucking go at it because, like, see who's really the superior guy? Nah, they're like, you know what? We're kind of fucking gonna die anyway. You wanna get drunk? Sure do. Yep. And there's your nihilistic ending, as you were describing before.
Yeah, because
very different from the original.
Very, very different, because there is also, I believe, some factor where because of whatever the alien did at some point, these guys are going to freeze out more or less. Like, the alien's going to try to freeze himself more or less until, like, a rescue team comes. Mm-hmm. So, like, they're kind of racing the clock in that sense with this whole fire and explosion thing. It's yeah, you're right. Like, it's depressing, right? Like, everyone's dead. The facility's blown up. Child's in McCready there. There's some theories out there that at this point Child's may be an alien as well. There's like this concept, like, if you see him talking at the end, like he doesn't, like, his breath, like, he can't see his breath, even though it's like freezing until, like, a certain point in the ending. So some people say that has, like, proof that he's an alien. I don't fucking know. I didn't do enough research. But what I do know is that it's not very likely that McCready or Childs gets out of there alive unless there's some kind of alien. So that's yeah, kind of a bummer.
It's yeah, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, you don't see them die, you just kind of assume. Mm-hmm. And you know, they're kind of left with, like, this nice moment of, like, all right, let's just have a drink, if assuming they're not aliens. That they're
let's assume they're not.
Yeah, they're just two friends, like, well, this is the end, old friend, let's just let's just go out with some class, some style, have a few drinks, and as far as like sad endings go, it could be sadder.
Oh yeah.
But I was okay with that ending. It was just, I think the tone was just pretty dark. So that dark ending was kind of fitting. I wasn't mad that, oh well, they didn't get away, that they might die. I was okay with like, well, who knows what's gonna happen next? Are they aliens? Maybe they're both aliens. Maybe one of them is. I don't know, but I was kind of okay with like, all right, this might be the end. It might not be.
Yeah. It just it did fit. Like it fit the tone of the film. I don't think that I needed like some sort of grand sort of resolution to all this. Like that to me felt like what would happen if a shape-shifting alien attacked some isolated science facility or whatever. It's like, I think most people would die, and the fact that it even looks like the humans might have got a win there. The humans might have got a win there. That's good enough for me.
Right. So we're left to believe that the humans were ultimately able to defeat the aliens. So that's a victory in itself. If our two last main characters don't make it, that blows. But the alien was presumably stopped. So I was okay with that.
Yeah, definitely. And well, they blew it all up, but like there could still be some evidence of what happened, kind of like the Norwegian crew, like someone could come along and see what happened, just in case there was any aliens still out there.
Yeah, because like I feel like if they got saved, it would have been some like Ex Machina thing. Yeah, it was just like completely come out of nowhere. It's like, oh, randomly a helicopter was passing by and saved them. It's like, well, it's not really realistic, and that wouldn't fit the tone of the movie that we were going.
Some real Poseidon Adventure bullshit. It's like, wait, the exact part of the ship you're on is the part that they opened up, and this is a good ending. Yeah.
I know a lot of people, like I read too, that a lot of people weren't happy with just like kind of the downer ending. Maybe it's just a little ahead of its time, but I thought pretty fitting.
Yeah. I think, with some of my research on the film, it did seem that, like, again, that nihilistic tone apparently was not popular at the time. People were not a fan of it.
They shot many alternate endings too to try to just find the one that was like the most pleasing. I think there was one where it was just Mac by himself. I forget the particulars of the other endings, but I know they did multiple endings.
Yeah, I think that the one they settled on, for me at least, I think it works.
Yeah, I think it works too.
Yeah.
We got these two main characters. They're still alive. There's just, hey, when they're alive, there's still hope. So, we don't know.
And I think it's Charles says that, eventually this fire is going to go out. It's like, well, nothing to do. Just wait, It's like, it's true. Like, if they're not rescued before the fire goes out, they're going to freeze to death. So, alien or not, they're going to freeze. So, it works for me, man.
All right. So that's the endings. Is there anything else you want to talk about? That's kind of all I've really got for the topics. Maybe a little bit the music. Could just talk about slightly.
Yeah, if you want to talk music, I think you're more keyed in on it.
I'll just talk about the music. I'll start with the original, or score by Dmitri Tiomkin. It's not a very music-heavy film.
Right.
There's not a lot of music in it. I think the only times we really hear music, like throughout the film, are pretty much when the aliens attacking, just to bring up the suspense. But there's a lot of just dialogue. Like we said,
50s dialogue.
Exactly, very snappy. Lots of people talking about things. It's just like, wait, where am I going?
Yeah.
So it's it's a typical 50s film in that it's not. The music doesn't really tell the story or doesn't help the story too much, except for like when you see the alien. So it was an okay score. The score in the remake, the Ennio Morricone, the guy who made the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, that classic score. So it's pretty solid score here. There's definitely more music played throughout. I just wanted to mention it because there's some very heavy synth elements, and I like that sound. I know John Carpenter is a fan of that sound, and it's I wish they were a little more synthy because I really dig that sound. But overall, it's a pretty solid score. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I thought the score worked, especially considering that a lot of the tension really isn't necessarily like action, right? Like a lot of tension is these sort of quieter moments and stuff like that. And I think the score handles it really well. Like I felt even with the slightly longer runtime on the John Carpenter remake, I never felt like, oh, this is still going on.
No.
Like killing the alien in the original felt longer than the movie, the remake.
No, it definitely had a good pace, and the score definitely helped move everything forward in that remake.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else to say, really, about either film. Is it that time, Reggie? Is it time to give our verdicts?
I think it's that time.
All right. So here we are. Reggie, should the remake to The Thing from Another World, which is just called The Thing, should that exist?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question in my book that The Thing should exist. Again, this feels very similar to The Fly. I don't think it hits quite the level where, like, when we watched The Fly, I was like, holy shit, this is like incredible, like so much better than the original. The Thing is better than the original, and it works literally most of the time. I mean, I could nitpick a few things here or there in terms of like effects, but like overall, the movie's really, really well done. Kurt Russell, this is some of the best Kurt Russell I've seen in a movie. Child is a memorable character. It's just, I like that they made this more about the men, the humans, than they kind of made about the alien, while still keeping that threat of the alien the whole time. And like, it really just messes with your head the whole time watching the movie. Like, what's going on? Who's an alien? Who's not? And you know, that mystery really serves, and like we mentioned, makes it feel like the movie isn't really that long. It's almost 2 hours long. It kind of breezed by for me. I do also want to note that I was pleasantly surprised by the original movie. I thought that it was going to be really, really cheesy, and you know, there are really cheesy parts, but like overall, I was like very surprised by how decent and good of a film that I thought it was. I've seen bad alien films. This one wasn't. The origin of the alien was really stupid, but the way they handled it was cool. That scene that you're talking about with the fire and stuff like that, that was really cool. And that monologue at the end, again, a little cheesy, but like really well done. I was like, wow, that was a good ending to this movie. A little too happy, but good. So yeah, all I'm saying is that both films should exist, but the remake is a better film. And I know why they call it a masterpiece, because in a lot of ways, I think it is.
All right, so I'm pretty much in the same boat as you, Reggie. Of course, this remake should exist. It's a very enjoyable film. It definitely is a step above what the original was. Not to say that the original is a piece of shit. I mean, you stole a lot of what I'm going to say. That original film was a lot better than I thought it would be. You know, we make fun of the quick talking dialogue, but you know, if they slow it down, it's actually some interesting things they're talking about. You know, usually these old films, it's a lot of exposition, but you know, they have a lot of asides. There is some character development, at least with Scotty. And you know, it's a pretty decent outing of like, let's have an alien film in the 50s. And then what the remake does is just genius. Again, going back to The Fly. Yes, I agree with you. It doesn't quite reach the levels of The Fly, but you know, just able to sort of pivot into like another genre. Let's dip into the horror a little bit more, you know, and then just changing what the alien is. It's not a threat from the outside; it's a threat from the inside. Kind of this mystery, and that's a great hook. Like, which one's the alien? Like, I really thought, I was like, it's just gonna be Kurt Russell. It's genius. But of course, they went in a different direction. But still, very, very engaging, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it can be cheesy at times, absolutely over the top. It definitely has like that 80s feel to it, even though it's like just at the beginning of the 80s, but it works. I'm able to forgive a lot of the sins in the movie just because so much of it works.
Yeah.
And I understand why people got mad at me for not seeing this film, because it is very enjoyable. And a lot of the stuff they did, even though it's 40 years old, a lot of the stuff still really works.
Yeah.
Those practical effects are really good. And just sometimes it's a shame that we have to rely so much on CG these days. But I enjoyed it. Sure, it's cheesy, but cheesy fun, and good film.
Yeah. Practical effects, kind of maybe not A+, but an A, definitely an A for me. and it definitely didn't look like a soundstage like that original.
Oh
like,
yeah.
that is not snow. Yeah, man, good film. I guess because we did talk about this a little bit, but just again, some of the research that we did prior to watching this, I was really surprised to read about how much people didn't like this at the time. Like, I thought that remake was really good, but it was like it flopped commercially until like release. I guess E.T. had come out around that time, so like this was like, I guess also the country was going through a depression at that point. So apparently, like nihilism was not what people wanted at the time. So it didn't do great originally, but luckily over time, people recognized how the genius of this film. So, and I certainly would like to add to that too. It's like it's a great movie.
Yeah, as far as horror movies about aliens, I've seen much worse. You could almost say this is the standard for that because it's really solid and it aged very well.
Yeah.
Overall, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I get why apparently we're going to do this again.
Yeah, we get to do a sequel to this episode.
It's like, I feel like Battlestar Galactica was like, yeah, we'll just do that.
I bet the remake has women in it.
I guarantee. It'd be kind of cool. Maybe they'll go Ghostbusters style. It'd be an all-women cast.
There you go.
Not that would change anything. But yeah, man, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good choice. Yep. All right, so what are we going to do next time? Should have prepared.
Well, I actually weirdly have one.
Okay. What do you got?
So we were talking before about like Superfly. That's not this one. It would have to be at least one or two after this. But I was scrolling through Amazon Prime the other day, and we did something like this when we watched Arthur. But I was thinking Alfie.
Alfie,
yeah. The remake has Jude Law. The original has Michael Caine.
Okay.
It's about like kind of like Playboy character who learns
to love.
yeah, basically. So I don't know how much of that we want to keep, but like, scrolling through, it's sort of a comedy, kind of like a rom-com type setup, but
all right.
It has at least one of our retro versus remake alumni, Michael Caine.
Michael Caine,
the Self-Preservation Society.
Self-preservation.
So I mean, unless you want to do something different.
No, it's good. It sounds like a tone change from this like sort of sci-fi horror to something a little lighter. Yeah, why not?
Cool.
All right, well, Alfie it is.
Alfie.
All right, well, thanks for listening, everybody. This has been another episode of Retro vs. Remake. You could always find us on the social medias, the Facebooks, the Twitters. I don't know why I'm sounding like John Wayne. But you can find us on the Facebook, the Twitters, the Instagram. I'm sure there's other things that I'm missing. If you're on YouTube, definitely leave us a comment below. If you're on iTunes, you can leave us a 5-star review. That'd be great.
Absolutely. So, I'm Reggie Parker.
And I'm Dan Bulick. Thanks for listening to another episode of Retro versus Remake.